What if I told you that a penny you might have ignored for decades could hold a story far bigger than its 1 cent face value, and in rare cases, be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? Today we're diving into a quiet but fascinating coin that millions of Americans have handled without a second thought, the 1973 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. This coin is officially known as the Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin struck in 1973 at the Denver Mint. The small letter D under the date tells us where it was made, and that single detail opens the door to a much larger story about American history: rising metal prices, minting challenges, and the surprising ways ordinary coins can become collectible treasures. To understand this penny, we need to travel back to 1973. America was going through major changes. The Vietnam War was coming to an end, the oil crisis was beginning to shake the economy, and inflation was becoming a daily concern for families across the country. Even the humble penny was affected by these pressures. The U.S. Mint was producing massive numbers of coins to keep up with commerce, while at the same time trying to manage rising production costs. The Lincoln penny itself had already been around for more than 6 decades by 1973. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it was the first American coin to feature a real historical person. By the time 1973 arrived, the design had gone through changes, but Lincoln's portrait remained one of the most recognized images in American money in 1959. The reverse side of the penny was redesigned to show the Lincoln Memorial, replacing the earlier wheat ears design. So in 1973, Americans were using a penny that combined a classic portrait on the front with a powerful national monument on the back. The 1973 D penny is part of this Lincoln Memorial era, a period that many collectors now appreciate for both its history and its hidden surprises. Let's talk about what this coin is made of. The 1973 D Lincoln penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This is important because just a few years later, the U.S. Mint would change the penny's composition due to the rising price of copper. That makes coins like the 1973 D part of the final generation of mostly copper pennies, something collectors pay close attention to today. The front of the coin features Lincoln facing right with the word Liberty to the left and the date to the right. Under the date, you'll find the small D Mint mark showing it was produced at the Denver Mint. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with tiny details that even include a seated statue of Lincoln inside the building. Above it are the words United States of America, and below it, the denomination 1 cent. At first glance, the 1973 D penny doesn't look rare at all. In fact, the Denver Mint produced well over 2.9 billion of these pennies that year. That's billion with a B. With numbers like that, you might think there's no way this coin could ever be valuable. But in coin collecting, condition and mistakes can turn common coins into sought-after finds. Most 1973 D pennies you'll encounter are worn from decades of use. They've been passed through countless hands, dropped into jars, and scraped along cash registers. These well-circulated examples are typically worth just 1 or 2 cents. However, when you move into higher quality coins, especially those that were never used, the story changes. Uncirculated 1973 D pennies, particularly those with strong detail and original red copper color, can sell for several dollars. Coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services have sold for much more. In top condition, with blazing red surfaces and no visible flaws, some examples have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction. Then there are the errors, and this is where curiosity really kicks in. Error coins are mistakes made during the minting process, and they are one of the biggest reasons collectors search through rolls of pennies. The 1973 D penny is known for several types of collectible errors. These include off-center strikes, where the design is noticeably shifted, and clipped planchets, where part of the coin is missing due to a cutting error. Another exciting error involves doubled die varieties. This happens when the coin die receives a misaligned impression, causing parts of the design, like the date or lettering, to appear doubled. While dramatic doubled dies are rare for this year in mint, subtle doubling has been found and can increase a coin's value significantly if verified. There are also examples of wrong planchet errors, where a penny was accidentally struck on a blank intended for another coin. These are extremely rare, but when discovered, they can sell for thousands of dollars due to their uniqueness. Real auction results help bring this coin's potential into focus. High-grade 1973 D Lincoln pennies certified by top grading services have sold at major auction houses like heritage auctions for impressive prices. Error coins from this year have also attracted strong bidding, especially when the mistake is obvious and well-documented. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1973 D penny? The first step is to check the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin for a small d. Next, examine the condition. Coins with sharp details, minimal scratches, and a bright copper color are far more desirable than dull, heavily worn examples. Weight is another helpful clue. A genuine 1973 D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, it could indicate an error or damage. Use a magnifying glass to look closely at the lettering and date for signs of doubling or unusual shapes. It's also important to be cautious about fakes and altered coins. Some people try to add mint marks to coins or alter dates to create the illusion of rarity. On genuine coins, the mint mark should look clean and natural, matching the rest of the design. If something looks suspicious, professional authentication is always worth considering. One fun fact about the 1973 D penny is that it comes from a time when pennies were nearly eliminated altogether. Rising copper prices sparked serious discussions about removing the 1-cent coin from circulation. While that didn't happen, it did lead to changes that make earlier copper pennies more appealing to collectors today. Another interesting detail is that many collectors build entire sets focused on the Lincoln Memorial reverse. The 1973 D penny plays a key role in these collections, representing a high-production year that still offers challenges in finding top-quality examples. Collectors also love this coin because it's accessible. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start searching for valuable pennies. Many people find 1973 D pennies in old jars, inherited collections, or even pocket change. The thrill comes from knowing that while most examples are common, a special one could be hiding in plain sight. Today, the 1973 D Lincoln penny stands as a reminder that history isn't always found in rare artifacts locked away in museums. Sometimes, it's right there in your hand, small, brown, and easy to overlook. It tells the story of a changing America, a shifting economy, and a mint working around the clock to keep the nation moving. So the next time you see a penny dated 1973 with a tiny D beneath the year, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. You might just be holding a piece of history, or maybe even a coin that collectors would love to add to their collection. And that's the real magic of coin collecting. Every coin has a story, and sometimes the most ordinary ones have the most surprising endings. Most people would never look twice at a penny from the 1970s. But what if I told you that a simple brown coin sitting quietly in a jar or drawer could still spark serious interest among collectors today? The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of those coins that hides its story in plain sight, and once you know what to look for, you may never see pocket change the same way again. The coin we're talking about today is the 1978 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and familiar to anyone who has handled U.S. coins. But this penny represents a very specific moment in American history, right before major changes in how pennies were made, and that's exactly why collectors still care about it. In 1978, the United States was going through economic shifts, rising inflation, and changes in manufacturing costs. The U.S. government still needed billions of pennies every year for daily commerce. So the United States Mint continued producing Lincoln cents in massive quantities. When a Lincoln penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use a mint mark on pennies at that time. This makes the phrase "no mint mark" important, but not a mistake. It's actually a clue to where the coin was made. The Lincoln penny itself has a much older story. The design first appeared in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. By 1978, the design had already been in use for nearly 70 years, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. On the front, or obverse, you see Lincoln's profile facing right, along with the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date. On the back, or reverse, the coin shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. That Lincoln Memorial design is more special than it first appears. If you look very closely at a well-preserved coin, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, making this one of the few U.S. coins to show the same person on both sides. The memorial itself represents the real structure in Washington, D.C., the Lincoln Memorial, tying the coin directly to American history and national identity. Now let's talk about what the 1978 no-mint mark penny is made of, because this is a key detail. These pennies are composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This matters because just a few years later, in 1982, the mint changed the penny's composition to mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. That means 1978 pennies belong to the final era of solid copper Lincoln cents, which automatically gives them extra interest among collectors in terms of production. Philadelphia struck well over 5 billion pennies in 1978. That's a huge number, and it's why most 1978 no-mint mark pennies are still worth only 1 cent if they're heavily worn. However, coin collecting is not about averages. It's about condition, details, and mistakes that slipped through the system. This is where things start to get interesting. While standard 1978 no-mint mark pennies are common, certain examples stand out because of errors. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during the coin-making process, such as misaligned dies, improper strikes, or metal flaws. For the 1978 penny, collectors have found off-center strikes, doubled die obverse, clipped planchets, and broad strikes. One of the most talked about errors is doubling in the lettering or date. This happens when the coin die receives more than one impression at slightly different angles. To the naked eye, the letters may look thicker or slightly shadowed. Under magnification, the doubling becomes clearer and far more valuable. Genuine doubled die 1978 pennies can sell for significant premiums compared to normal examples. Condition also plays a huge role in value. A circulated 1978 penny that's been used in everyday transactions may be worth only a cent or two. But a coin that has never been in circulation, known as an uncirculated coin, can be worth much more. If it still has its original red copper color, sharp details, and no wear, collectors classify it as mint state. High-grade examples graded by professional services have sold for impressive amounts. Some pristine 1978 no-mint mark pennies have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, especially when they show strong luster and no visible flaws. Error coins can go even higher, depending on how dramatic and well-documented the error is. Collectors often ask whether these pennies are actually rare. The honest answer is that the coin itself is not rare, but rare versions of it absolutely exist. This distinction is important. Millions of people may own a 1978 penny, but only a small fraction of those pennies meet the standards that serious collectors are willing to pay for. So how can you tell if you have a real 1978 no-mint mark penny and not something altered or fake? First, check the date carefully. It should read 1978, and there should be no letter below the date. If you see a D or S, that means it was minted in Denver or San Francisco, not Philadelphia. Next, examine the color and weight. A genuine 1978 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams and have a solid copper feel. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the lettering and Lincoln's portrait. Look for unnatural tool marks, scratches, or signs that someone tried to add or remove a mint mark. Altered coins exist, and collectors are cautious. If you believe you've found an error or a high-grade example, professional grading is the safest way to confirm authenticity and value. There are also fun and surprising details about this penny that many people don't know. For example, because copper prices have risen over the years, the metal content of a 1978 penny has sometimes been worth close to or even more than 1 cent. While it's illegal to melt U.S. coins for profit, this fact highlights why older copper pennies are viewed differently from modern zinc ones. Another interesting fact is that the 1978 penny was minted during the final years before modern automation took over much of the coin inspection process. That means human oversight still played a large role, which is why error coins from this period are more common than people expect. Collectors today love the 1978 no-mint mark penny because it sits at the crossroads of old and new. It represents the end of the traditional copper cent era, the continuation of a historic design, and a time when everyday coins still carried weight, literally and historically. It's affordable, accessible, and yet full of potential surprises. For new collectors, this penny is often a gateway coin. It's easy to find, simple to understand, and exciting enough to encourage closer inspection. For experienced collectors, it's a reminder that value isn't always about age alone. Sometimes it's about timing, condition, and the small details others overlook. As you go through your change, jars, or inherited collections, The 1978 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny invites you to slow down and look closer. What seems ordinary might carry a story, a mistake, or a moment in history that's still worth discovering today. And the next time a penny lands in your hand, ask yourself this. Is it really just 1 cent? Or could it be a quiet survivor from America's copper past, waiting for someone curious enough to notice it? Imagine pulling a single penny from your pocket and realizing it was born during gas lines, disco music, and one of the most uncertain years in modern American history. A penny that almost everyone has seen, but almost no one truly understands. Today, we're uncovering the quiet story behind the 1979 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, yet carries a surprising legacy that still fascinates collectors decades later. The coin we're talking about today is the 1979 Lincoln 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark just below the date. It may not shine like gold or sound impressive like a silver dollar, but this penny represents a turning point in American coinage and everyday life. It was produced during a year of economic stress, cultural change, and rising inflation, and it tells that story in copper and zinc. To understand this penny, we have to step back into 1979. America was in the middle of an energy crisis. Inflation was high, interest rates were climbing, and people were holding tightly to every dollar they had. Coins mattered. Pennies mattered. The Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for 70 years by that point, first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln. By 1979, the design was familiar, trusted, and deeply rooted in American daily life. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of pennies that year. The reason was simple. Pennies were used constantly, and older cents were wearing out fast. Vending machines, parking meters, payphones, and everyday cash transactions depended on a steady supply of small change. The 1979 D penny helped keep the economy moving at the most basic level. Now let's look closely at what makes this coin unique. The 1979 D Lincoln penny features Lincoln's right-facing portrait on the front, a design originally created by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln's expression is calm and thoughtful, symbolizing unity and resilience. The word liberty appears to the left, the date to the right, and in God we trust above his head. Flip the coin over and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. This design had been used since 1959 and was still in place in 1979. If you look closely, you can actually see Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, making this one of the few U.S. coins where the same person appears on both sides. It's a small detail, but one collectors love to point out. The metal composition of the 1979 D penny is especially important. This coin was made during the era when pennies were primarily copper. It contains about 95% copper and 5% zinc. Just a few years later, in 1982, rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to switch to mostly zinc pennies with only a thin copper coating. That makes the 1979 D penny part of the final generation of traditional copper cents, a fact that adds to its historical appeal. At first glance, you might think a penny made in such large numbers couldn't possibly be valuable. And it's true that most 1979 D pennies are still worth just 1 cent. But value in coin collecting isn't only about rarity. It's about condition, errors, and story. Some 1979 D pennies were struck with noticeable mint errors. These include off-center strikes, where the design is shifted to one side, making part of the coin blank. There are also doubled die errors, where letters or numbers appear doubled because of a misaligned die during the minting process. On some examples, the word liberty or the date shows clear doubling under magnification. Another error collectors watch for is a clipped planchet. This happens when the metal blank isn't cut properly, leaving a curved or straight missing section on the coin. These errors escaped quality control and made it into circulation, where they were unknowingly spent and saved by everyday people. Condition plays a huge role in value. A 1979 D penny that has been heavily circulated, scratched, or discolored will usually be worth face value. But coins that were never used, known as uncirculated coins, can be worth significantly more. If a coin still has its original red copper color, with no wear and sharp details, collectors consider it especially desirable in top condition. Certified examples of the 1979 D penny have sold for surprising amounts. Coins graded at the highest levels by professional grading services have sold at auctions for hundreds of dollars. These are not average pennies pulled from loose change. These are coins that were carefully preserved, often straight from mint rolls and stored for decades. Real auction records show that a perfect or near-perfect 1979 D penny, graded at the highest mint state levels, can sell for $300, $400, or even more depending on demand. Error coins can push those numbers higher. A strong double die or dramatic off-center strike can attract serious collector interest and competitive bidding. So how can you tell if you have a real and valuable 1979 D penny? First, check the date and the mint mark. The D should be just below the date on the front of the coin. No mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia, which is a different coin entirely. Next, look at the color. Genuine copper pennies from 1979 have a warm, rich tone. Be cautious of altered coins. Some people try to plate zinc pennies to make them look copper. A simple weight test can help. A real 1979 D copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. Anything significantly lighter could be altered or damaged. Magnification is your best friend. Use a simple magnifying glass to inspect the letters and numbers. Look for doubling, strange shapes, or areas where the design looks blurry or layered. Also check the edges. They should be smooth, not reeded, and show solid copper color all the way around. Be wary of coins that look too perfect but lack detail. Counterfeiters sometimes cast fake coins, which can result in soft details and tiny bubbles in the metal. Genuine mint-struck coins have crisp lines and sharp edges, especially in the lettering. One fun and surprising fact about the 1979 D penny is how many of them are still out there. Millions were saved in jars, drawers, and coffee cans during the late 1970s and early 1980s when people started hearing that copper pennies might become valuable. Many families set them aside without realizing how condition would matter decades later. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial reverse was nearing the end of its run. Just 3 years later, the composition would change, and in 2009, the reverse design would change entirely. That places the 1979 D penny firmly in a closing chapter of classic American coin design. Collectors today love this coin not because it's flashy, but because it's honest. It represents everyday America. It passed through countless hands during a challenging time in history. It bought candy, paid tolls, and filled tip jars. And yet, some examples survived untouched, frozen in time, waiting to be rediscovered. For new collectors, the 1979 D Lincoln penny is an accessible entry point. It's affordable, widely available, and full of learning opportunities. For advanced collectors, high-grade and error examples offer real challenges and rewards. It's a coin that grows with you as your knowledge grows. As you go through your change or old coin jars. Remember this: sometimes the most interesting treasures aren't hidden in vaults or museums. They're hiding in plain sight. That small copper coin you've ignored for years might carry a story of history, craftsmanship, and unexpected value. The next time you see a 1979 D Lincoln penny, don't rush past it. Take a second look. Turn it over. Study the details. Because in a world of fast money and digital payments, this humble penny still whispers stories from a very different time, and some of those stories are worth far more than 1 cent. Most people would walk right past this penny without a second glance. But what if I told you that one small detail on a 1984 Lincoln penny could quietly turn pocket change into a serious collector discovery? Today, we're uncovering the hidden story behind the 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary, yet holds surprises that still excite collectors decades later. The 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck in the United States in the year 1984. The phrase no mint mark simply means the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not place a mint mark on pennies at that time. These coins entered everyday circulation, passed from hand to hand, spent in stores, and often forgotten in jars and drawers. But within this massive production run, certain examples stand out in fascinating ways. To understand this penny, we need to step back to the early 1980s. The United States was dealing with rising metal prices, and just 2 years earlier, in 1982, the Lincoln penny had undergone one of the most important changes in its history. For decades, pennies were mostly copper. But starting in 1982, the composition shifted to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. By 1984, this new format was firmly in place, and millions upon millions of pennies were being produced to meet the needs of daily commerce. The obverse of the coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. The words "In God We Trust" appear along the top, Liberty sits to the left, and the date 1984 is placed to the right. On the reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a subtle detail many people never noticed at first glance. There seems to be nothing special here. The metal is standard for its time, about 97.5% zinc with a thin copper layer. The weight is approximately 2.5 grams, lighter than the old copper pennies. The diameter and thickness match other modern Lincoln cents. This is exactly why the 1984 no-mint mark penny is so interesting. Its value doesn't come from rarity in normal condition, but from the unusual mistakes and variations that slipped through during production. The year 1984 is especially famous among collectors for one major error variety. This is known as the 1984 Doubled Die Obverse. During the coin-making process, a working die was accidentally struck more than once at slightly different angles. The result was a noticeable doubling on parts of the design, especially in the word Liberty and in the date. Unlike minor machine doubling, this type of doubling is bold, clear, and visible even without magnification in strong examples. Not every 1984 no-mint mark penny has this feature. In fact, most do not. But those that do are among the most searched for modern pennies in the United States. This error wasn't discovered immediately. For years, these coins circulated freely, mixed in with billions of ordinary cents. Many were likely spent, lost, or damaged before anyone realized what they were. So why does this matter? Because collectors value mistakes that tell a story. A double die coin is physical proof of a moment when the minting process went slightly wrong. It's a snapshot of history frozen in metal. And when the error is dramatic enough, demand follows. In average circulated condition, a regular 1984 no-mint mark penny is typically worth just 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, most examples sell for only a small premium, sometimes a few cents to a couple of dollars. But when you introduce the Doubled Die Obverse, everything changes. Strong examples of the 1984 Doubled Die penny have sold for impressive amounts over the years. Lower-grade examples that still clearly show the doubling can sell for several $100s. Higher-grade coins, especially those with sharp details and minimal wear, have sold for thousands. In some cases, near-perfect examples certified by major grading services have reached prices that surprise even seasoned collectors. Collectors also look for other smaller errors on 1984 pennies. These include off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks. While these errors are less famous than the doubled die, they still add interest and value. Each one is unique, and no two error coins look exactly the same. Identifying a genuine 1984 no-mint mark doubled die penny takes patience and careful observation. The first step is checking the mint mark, or rather, confirming there isn't one. If there's no letter under the date, the coin was struck in Philadelphia. Next, examine the word Liberty. On true doubled die examples, the letters appear clearly doubled, not just fuzzy or flat. The doubling should look like a second image slightly offset from the first. The date is another key area. Look closely at the numbers in 1984, especially the 1 and the 9. On authentic doubled die coins, you'll see strong separation between the doubled images. Using a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe helps, but many strong examples can be seen with the naked eye. It's also important to avoid confusing machine doubling with true doubled die errors. Machine doubling often looks flat and shelf-like, as if part of the letter has been shaved off. True doubled dies show rounded, raised doubling that matches the original design. When in doubt, collectors often turn to professional coin grading services for authentication. One fun fact about the 1984 penny is how many people unknowingly owned one. Stories still circulate of collectors who found a double die example in a roll of bank pennies or in an old jar at home. This adds to the excitement. Unlike ancient coins or rare gold pieces, this is something anyone could realistically discover. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial design would only last a few more years. In 2009, the reverse was changed to commemorate Lincoln's bicentennial and later replaced with the Union Shield design. That means the 1984 penny represents the later years of a classic look that many Americans grew up with. Collectors today love the 1984 no-mint mark penny because it sits at the intersection of modern accessibility and genuine rarity. It's not rare in a general sense, but the special varieties are scarce enough to matter. It's a coin that rewards curiosity and careful observation rather than deep pockets. There's also a strong emotional connection. Many collectors remember using these pennies as kids. Finding out that one of them could be special brings a sense of nostalgia and excitement. It reminds people that history isn't always locked away in museums. Sometimes, it's hiding in plain sight. Even now, decades after its release, the hunt continues. Coin roll hunters still search through rolls of pennies hoping to spot that unmistakable doubling. Estate collections and old piggy banks are checked carefully. Every so often, a new example surfaces, sparking renewed interest. The 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny teaches an important lesson in coin collecting. Value doesn't always come from age or precious metal. Sometimes it comes from imperfection. A tiny mistake, unnoticed at the time, can transform an everyday object into a treasured collectible. So the next time you see a small copper-colored penny dated 1984, don't be too quick to dismiss it. Take a closer look. Tilt it under the light. Study the letters and numbers. Because hidden within that ordinary coin could be a remarkable story, one that connects you directly to the history of American money and the fascinating world of minting errors. And who knows, the next great discovery might already be sitting in your pocket, waiting for you to notice it. Imagine pulling a single penny from your pocket and realizing it might be more than just spare change. A coin most people ignore every day. A penny dated 1988, with no mint mark, hiding a story that almost no one tells. What if I told you that this ordinary-looking Lincoln penny could hold surprising value, history, and secrets collectors actively search for today? The 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States during a time of major change in American coinage. It looks simple, familiar, and almost boring at first glance. But like many everyday coins, its real story is beneath the surface. This penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally does not place a mint mark on its coins. That missing letter, the absence of a D or an S, is exactly what defines this coin and makes it interesting to collectors. To understand why this penny matters, we need to step back to the year 1988. The United States was nearing the end of the Cold War era. Technology was rapidly advancing, and the economy was shifting. While history books focus on politics and world events, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing billions of pennies to support daily commerce. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, had already been in circulation for nearly 8 decades by 1988. It had become the longest-running design in U.S. coin history. By 1988, the penny was no longer made from solid copper. Rising metal costs forced the U.S. Mint to change the composition earlier in the decade. Starting in 1982, Lincoln pennies were made from a core of zinc with a thin copper coating. The 1988 no-mint mark penny follows this newer composition. It contains 97.5% zinc and just 2.5% copper. While that may sound unimportant, this change plays a big role in how these coins age, how they look today, and how collectors judge their condition. The front of the coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces right, calm and dignified, just as he has on the penny for generations. The words "In God We Trust" appear along the top, Liberty sits to the left, and the date 1988 appears to the right. The back of the coin shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. Inside the memorial, if you look closely, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside, making this one of the few U.S. coins to feature the same person on both sides. That reverse design represents the famous Lincoln Memorial, one of the most recognized landmarks in America. Now let's talk about what makes the 1988 no-mint mark penny stand out. First, the absence of a mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. In 1988, the Philadelphia Mint produced billions of pennies. Because of that, many people assume these coins are worthless. But in the coin collecting world, rarity does not always mean low mintage. It can also mean condition, errors, and small details most people overlook. One of the biggest reasons collectors search for 1988 no mint mark pennies is the possibility of mint errors. Errors occur when something goes wrong during the striking process. In 1988, high-speed coin production sometimes led to mistakes that slipped past quality control. These mistakes are now frozen in metal, creating coins that are unique and collectible. Some known errors for 1988 pennies include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin. Others include broad strikes, where the coin spreads out wider than normal because the collar was missing during striking. There are also doubled die errors, where parts of the design, especially the date or lettering, appear doubled due to a misaligned die. While dramatic double dies are rare for this year, minor doubling can still add value. Another issue collectors watch for is weak strikes. Because zinc is softer than copper, some 1988 pennies show poor detail, especially on Lincoln's hair or the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Ironically, coins with exceptionally sharp details stand out even more because they show that the dies were fresh and well-aligned. High-quality examples are much harder to find today than you might expect. So why can this penny be valuable? In everyday circulated condition, most 1988 no-mint mark pennies are worth just 1 cent. But value changes dramatically based on condition. A penny that has never been circulated, with full original luster and no wear, can be worth much more to collectors. Coins graded in mint state by professional grading services often sell for several dollars, sometimes more, depending on the grade.at auctions and coin shows. High-grade 1988 no-mint mark pennies have sold for surprising amounts. A penny graded MS67 or higher, meaning it is nearly perfect, can sell for anywhere from $20 to over $100. Error coins can bring even higher prices. Off-center strikes and dramatic errors have sold for hundreds of dollars, depending on how visible and unusual the mistake is. Collectors love real-world stories, and this penny has plenty. There are cases where people found 1988 pennies in old jars, coffee cans, or inherited collections and had no idea they owned a high-grade example. Because these coins were made for everyday use, very few were carefully saved at the time. That makes top-condition survivors much scarcer today. If you want to identify a real 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, start with the date. It must clearly read 1988. Then look under the date. If there is no letter below it, that confirms it was struck in Philadelphia. Next, check the weight. A genuine 1988 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. A significant difference could indicate damage or tampering. Examine the color as well. Because these coins are copper-plated zinc, they often show bubbling, peeling, or gray spots if the copper layer is damaged. While damage lowers value, an untouched, smooth surface is a good sign. Also inspect the edges. The edge should be smooth, with no signs of filing or alteration. Fake pennies are rare, but altered coins do exist. Some people try to remove mint marks from Denver or San Francisco coins. Under magnification, you can usually see scratches or tool marks where the mint mark once was. A genuine no-mint mark penny will have a smooth, natural surface in that area. Here's a fun fact many people don't know. In 1988, pennies were already costing more than 1 cent to produce. This sparked debates inside the U.S. Mint about the future of the penny, debates that continue even today. Every 1988 penny is a reminder of how close the penny has come to being discontinued. Another surprising detail is how this penny connects generations. Many people alive today used these coins as children, spending them on candy or arcade games. Now, decades later, those same pennies are being rediscovered and reevaluated as collectibles. Collectors love the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny because it represents the hidden side of coin collecting. It proves that you don't need gold or silver to find something interesting. Even modern coins, if preserved well or struck with an error, can become desirable pieces of history. This coin also appeals to beginner collectors. It's affordable, easy to find, and teaches important lessons about grading, condition, and minting practices. At the same time, advanced collectors enjoy hunting for the best examples. chasing perfect strikes and rare errors. In the end, the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is more than just a piece of pocket change. It's a snapshot of American history, a product of evolving technology, and a reminder that value is not always obvious at first glance. The next time you see a penny dated 1988, don't toss it aside too quickly. Look closer, because sometimes the most ordinary coin can tell an extraordinary story, and the next valuable discovery might already be in your hand. Imagine pulling a single penny from your pocket and realizing it might be hiding a story that connects modern America to history, craftsmanship, and unexpected value. This isn't an old coin from the 1800s. It's a penny many people have already touched, spent, or ignored. The 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of those quiet coins that doesn't scream rare, but quietly rewards the people who pay attention. The 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States during a time of major global change. It looks ordinary at first glance, the same brown or copper-colored penny most Americans grew up with. But what makes it special is not just the year. It's the missing mint mark, a small detail that tells us where the coin was made and why collectors still care about it today. In 1991, the United States was entering a new decade. The Cold War had just ended, technology was moving fast, and everyday life was changing. The penny, however, remained a constant. Millions of Lincoln pennies were struck that year to support daily commerce, vending machines, and cash transactions across the country. Pennies without a mint mark were produced at the main mint facility in Philadelphia, operated by the United States Mint. At that time, Philadelphia pennies traditionally carried no mint mark, which is exactly what we see on this coin. The Lincoln penny design used in 1991 was already familiar to Americans. The front of the coin shows Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. Lincoln's calm profile faces right, with the words, "In God We Trust," above his head and the date 1991 below. To the right of Lincoln is the word liberty, a reminder of the values the coin represents. The back of the 1991 penny features the Lincoln Memorial, a design created by Frank Gasparo and first used in 1959. Inside the memorial, if you look closely, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln, making this one of the few U.S. coins to show the same person on both sides. This design remained in use until 2008, making the 1991 penny part of a long and recognizable era in American coinage. Now let's talk about what this coin is made of, because the metal tells an important story. By 1991, pennies were no longer solid copper. Rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to change the composition in 1982. The 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is made of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper coating. It looks like copper, but inside it's mostly zinc, making it lighter than older pennies from the 1960s and earlier. This change in metal makes condition extremely important. The copper coating is thin, and over time it can wear away, exposing the gray zinc underneath. Pennies that remain bright, red, and fully coated are much harder to find today, especially after decades of circulation. So why would a common penny like this be worth talking about? The answer lies in condition, errors, and collector demand. While millions of 1991 no-mint mark pennies were made, very few survive in perfect condition. Most were spent, dropped, scratched, or worn down over years of use. Collectors pay close attention to pennies that look almost exactly as they did the day they left the mint. Mint state examples, especially those graded at very high levels like MS67 or MS68, can sell for surprisingly strong prices. At major auctions and online collector marketplaces, top-graded 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies have sold for anywhere from $100 to over $1,000, depending on color, strike quality, and surface preservation. These are not guesses. These are real results driven by collectors who want the best example available. Errors also play a major role in value. Some 1991 pennies were struck with off-center designs, weak strikes, or doubled lettering. One of the most interesting errors involves doubling on the date or the words, "In God We Trust." These double die errors happen during the coin-making process and are highly collectible. Even small doubling can multiply the value many times over compared to a normal example. Another sought-after issue is the broad strike, where the coin spreads wider than normal due to a missing retaining collar during striking. These coins look slightly larger and flatter than a regular penny and immediately catch a collector's eye. While not common, they do exist for 1991 Philadelphia pennies and can command strong prices when authenticated. Collectors often ask how to tell if a 1991 no-mint mark penny is real and valuable. The first step is simple observation. A genuine Philadelphia penny from 1991 will have no letter under the date. If you see a D or an S, it was minted elsewhere. Weight is another clue. A normal 1991 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant differences may suggest damage, plating issues, or a non-standard coin. Magnification is your best friend. A simple coin loop can reveal doubling, surface bubbles, or unusual marks that indicate errors. Authentic mint errors usually show smooth, natural metal flow rather than harsh scratches or tool marks. If a coin looks too perfect in an unnatural way, it may have been altered outside the mint, which does not add value. Professional grading services play a huge role in the modern coin market. Companies like the Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Company authenticate, grade, and encapsulate coins, giving buyers confidence. High-value 1991 pennies almost always appear in these certified holders. Here's a fun fact many people don't realize. Even though pennies are losing their role in everyday spending, Lincoln cents remain one of the most collected U.S. coins in history. Millions of Americans collect them by date, mint, or condition. That means demand stays strong, even for modern issues like 1991, especially when collectors try to build complete high-grade sets. Another surprising detail is how lighting affects value. Pennies are often described as red, red-brown, or brown. A bright red 1991 penny that has never turned dull is far rarer than most people think. These red examples are highly prized and can be worth many times more than the same coin with darker color. Collectors love the 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny because it represents a moment in time. It's modern enough to feel familiar, yet old enough that pristine examples are disappearing. It also offers an affordable entry point into serious coin collecting. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start searching for one. You might already have it. This coin also teaches an important lesson. Value doesn't always come from age alone. It comes from condition, rarity within context, and collector demand. The 1991 penny proves that even coins from recent decades can surprise you. Today, many collectors actively search rolls of pennies hoping to find that one exceptional example. They look for sharp details on Lincoln's hair, full steps in the memorial, and clean surfaces without marks. Finding one feels like uncovering a small piece of hidden history. As you think about the 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, remember this: somewhere, in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten roll of coins, there may be a penny quietly waiting to be noticed. It doesn't shout its importance. It whispers it. And sometimes, the coins that seem the most ordinary are the ones with the most interesting stories. The next time you see a penny dated 1991 without a mint mark, don't rush past it. Take a closer look, because that simple cent might not just be spare change. It might be a reminder that history, value, and curiosity can all fit in the palm of your hand. What if I told you that a penny you might have tossed into a jar without a second thought could still hold a quiet story of American history, modern minting, and surprising collector interest? Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the 1992 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance but carries details that many people completely overlook. The 1992 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint in 1992. The small letter D on the coin tells us where it was made, and that tiny mark is the key to its identity. This penny belongs to the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln. By 1992, the Lincoln penny was already a familiar part of daily life in the United States, quietly passing from hand to hand in stores, pockets, and piggy banks. To understand this coin, we need to step back into the early 1990s. America was changing. Technology was advancing, the Cold War had recently ended, and everyday transactions still relied heavily on cash. Pennies were used constantly, so the United States Mint produced billions of them each year. The 1992 D penny was created simply to keep commerce moving. It was never meant to be rare, never meant to be special, and never meant to be saved. And yet, that is exactly why it has become interesting to collectors today. The design of the 1992 D Lincoln penny follows the classic Lincoln memorial style. On the front, you see Lincoln's right-facing portrait, calm and serious, a design first introduced in 1909. Above his head is the word liberty, and in front of his face is the motto, "In God We Trust." Below is the date, 1992. The small D mint mark sits just under the date, telling us it came from Denver. Flip the coin over, and you see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that appeared on pennies from 1959 through 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making this one of the few U.S. coins where the same person appears on both sides. Around the memorial are the words United States of America and 1 cent, with the motto E pluribus unum above the building. Now let's talk about what the coin is made of, because this is where modern history quietly shows itself. By 1992, pennies were no longer made of solid copper. Rising metal prices forced the mint to change the composition in 1982. The 1992 D penny is made of zinc with a thin copper coating. It weighs about 2.5 grams and has a bright, coppery appearance when new, even though most of its core is zinc. This change allowed the government to keep producing pennies at a reasonable cost. Even though many people never noticed the difference. At this point, you might be wondering why anyone would care about a penny that was produced in massive numbers. After all, over 4 billion Lincoln cents were struck in 1992 across all mints, and the Denver Mint alone produced well over 4 billion coins that year. With numbers like that, rarity seems impossible. But coin collecting isn't just about how many were made. It's about condition, mistakes, and small details that separate common coins from special ones. Most 1992 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent in everyday condition. If you find one that has been heavily circulated, darkened, or scratched, it's simply face value. However, coins that have never been used, known as uncirculated coins, can be worth more. A bright, clean 1992 D penny with no wear can sell for anywhere from a few cents to a couple of dollars, depending on how sharp the details are and how well it has been preserved. Things get more interesting when we talk about errors. Mint errors happen when something goes wrong during the striking process, and even modern coins like the 1992 D penny can have them. Some examples include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered on the coin, or double strikes, where the coin was struck more than once. There are also clipped planchets, where a piece of the metal blank is missing, creating a curved cut along the edge. Another error collectors look for is doubling in the lettering or date. This can happen when the die that strikes the coin has a slight misalignment. On genuine doubled die coins, the doubling looks strong and rounded, not flat or blurry. While major doubled die varieties for the 1992 D penny are rare, minor examples do exist and can add value if properly identified. One of the biggest value factors for this coin is condition grading. Professional grading services examine coins under magnification and assign them a grade. A 1992 D penny graded at the very top level, with full original luster and no visible marks, can be surprisingly desirable. Some top-graded examples have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, not because the coin is rare in general, but because very few survive in perfect condition after decades of circulation. Collectors often share stories of finding these pennies in old rolls, bank boxes, or childhood collections. A roll of 1992 D pennies that has never been opened can be especially appealing, since it may contain coins in near-perfect condition. These rolls represent a frozen moment in time, untouched since they left the mint. Of course, with value comes the risk of confusion or false claims. Thankfully, the 1992 D penny is not commonly faked because it is still a modern coin. However, people sometimes mistake damage for errors. Scratches, dents, and corrosion can look unusual, but they are not mint errors. A real error happens during production, not after the coin enters circulation. To identify a genuine 1992 D penny, start with the basics. Check the date and look for the D mint mark below it. Use a scale if possible to confirm the weight is close to 2.5 grams. Examine the edges and surfaces under good light. Real mint errors will look natural and smooth, not jagged or forced. If you think you've found something special, Comparing it to images from reputable coin references or having it examined by a professional is always a smart move. There are also fun and surprising details about this penny that many people don't know. For example, by 1992, the Lincoln Memorial design had already been in use for over 30 years, making it one of the longest-running reverse designs in U.S. coin history. Another interesting fact is that while billions were made, many have already been destroyed or lost, slowly shrinking the total number over time. Collectors today appreciate the 1992 D penny because it represents the modern era of U.S. coinage. It's a reminder of a time when pennies were still heavily used and rarely questioned. For new collectors, it's an affordable entry point into the hobby. For experienced collectors, it's a challenge to find the best possible examples or interesting errors hidden among ordinary coins. This penny also connects generations. Many people remember handling these coins as children or seeing them in change during the early 1990s. Holding one today can spark memories and curiosity, which is one of the reasons coin collecting remains so popular. It's not always about striking it rich. Sometimes it's about holding a small piece of everyday history. As we come to the end of this story, remember this. The 1992 D Lincoln penny may not be a legendary rarity, but it proves an important lesson in coin collecting. Value isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's hiding in condition, in tiny details, or in the story behind the coin. The next time you see a penny dated 1992 with a small D beneath the date, take a second look. You might be holding more than just 1 cent. You might be holding a quiet piece of American history that's still waiting to be noticed. Welcome back. Imagine holding a piece of American history in the palm of your hand, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but hides a story that can excite collectors and history enthusiasts alike. One such coin is the 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. On the surface, it may appear as just another penny, easy to overlook in your spare change or tucked away in an old jar. But for those who know, this coin is a small treasure that represents a fascinating chapter in the long history of Lincoln cents. Today, we're going to dive deep into what makes this 1994 penny unique, how to spot it, and why collectors can't get enough of it. The 1994 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running series of 1-cent coins honoring Abraham Lincoln, a tradition that began in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. The design features the familiar portrait of Lincoln on the obverse, crafted by Victor David Brenner, and on the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, which has graced the penny since 1959. What makes the 1994 version particularly interesting is not a dramatic design change or flashy appearance, but rather its place in the era of modern coin production, when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with ways to streamline production while still maintaining quality. While millions of pennies were minted that year, a small subset of these coins carries the no-mint mark designation, which instantly catches the eye of collectors. To understand the 1994 penny, we need to explore its history. By 1994, the United States Mint had already been producing pennies for over 8 decades with the Lincoln portrait. The 1990s were a period of relative stability in coinage, but the U.S. Mint was still very conscious of die production, quality control, and collector interest. Coins with no mint mark were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, which had traditionally refrained from placing a mint mark on its coins for many years. While this might seem normal today, it becomes significant when comparing circulation patterns and production errors across different mints. Pennies from Philadelphia without a mint mark can occasionally present unique characteristics, especially if a coin experienced a minting error or came from a limited run of exceptionally well-struck specimens. The 1994 penny is firmly rooted in this context, making it more than just a common piece of change. Now, let's look at the unique features of the 1994 Lincoln penny. The coin is composed primarily of copper-plated zinc, a composition that had been used since 1982 to reduce production costs. It weighs just under 3 grams, has a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, and retains the traditional reddish-brown color associated with copper pennies. On the obverse, you'll find the sharp, dignified portrait of Abraham Lincoln, looking to the right, with the inscriptions "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1994 on the right. The reverse features the Lincoln Memorial in fine detail, with the words "United States of America" at the top and 1 cent at the bottom, along with the motto "E Pluribus Unum," While the design itself is not unique to 1994, the coin can sometimes present subtle variations or minor errors, such as double dies, weak strikes, or slight misalignments, which can significantly increase its value to collectors. SOY is the 1994 no-mint mark penny considered rare or valuable in certain circles. The rarity does not come from the coin being scarce in production, as millions were minted, but from a combination of condition, production anomalies, and collector interest. Coins that are in uncirculated or near-mint condition can fetch a premium, especially if they exhibit exceptional luster, sharp detail, or minor errors that make them stand out from the typical circulation penny. Additionally, certain 1994 pennies with slight variations in die strikes or minor manufacturing quirks are actively sought after by collectors who specialize in modern Lincoln cents. It's a case where quality and subtlety can create scarcity, even among coins that technically are not rare. Real-world examples of the 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny selling at auction can be quite fascinating. High-grade uncirculated examples, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, can command prices significantly higher than face value, sometimes reaching several dollars per coin when bought in bulk or in specialized collections. Coins with notable errors or exceptionally strong strikes have been known to sell for even more, with some examples appearing in online auctions and numismatic marketplaces for upwards of $20 to $50, depending on rarity and demand. While these numbers may seem modest compared to historic rare coins, for a modern penny, they are remarkable and they illustrate the keen interest collectors have in subtle differences and pristine preservation. For those who want to identify a real 1994 no-mint mark penny versus a counterfeit or misrepresented coin, there are some clear tips. First, examine the mint mark area carefully. The absence of a D or S mint mark indicates Philadelphia origin, but it should be uniform and clean, without signs of alteration. Next, check the coin's weight and diameter. The zinc-copper composition should feel slightly lighter than older all-copper pennies. Inspect the details of Lincoln's portrait and the Lincoln Memorial. The lines should be sharp and precise, especially around the date and lettering. Look for any signs of casting, unusual surface texture, or tampering, as these can indicate a counterfeit or artificially altered coin. Comparing the coin with verified examples, either through online databases or reference guides, is always recommended for collectors who want to ensure authenticity. Fun facts about the 1994 Lincoln penny add another layer to its story. Despite being a modern coin, it is part of the longest-running portrait series in U.S. coinage history, and Lincoln is the only president to appear on the penny for over a century. The 1994 penny represents a transitional period in American coinage, where traditional design met modern production techniques. Some coins from this era show an unusual brightness or striking detail that collectors affectionately call gem quality, even though these coins were produced for everyday use. Additionally, because pennies are often overlooked, many 1994 no-mint mark specimens have survived in excellent condition, tucked away in coin rolls, collections, or forgotten jars, waiting to be discovered. Collectors love the 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny today for several reasons. First, it offers a tangible connection to recent history, bridging the gap between classic and contemporary numismatics. Its design is instantly recognizable, yet the opportunity to find a flawless specimen or a minor error adds excitement and challenge to collecting. It's also a coin that is approachable for beginners, as the cost to start a collection of 1994 pennies is reasonable, but the potential for discovering a valuable or unique piece creates a sense of treasure hunting. For seasoned collectors, the coin is a way to complete date sets, explore subtle variations, or invest in modern numismatics with the knowledge that quality and rarity are determined more by condition than sheer scarcity. As we wrap up, consider this. The 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may sit quietly in a pocket or drawer, but its story is rich and full of intrigue. It connects us to the Philadelphia Mint's long history, to Lincoln's enduring legacy, and to the modern era of coin collecting where even the smallest details can spark curiosity and excitement. Every time you hold one, you are holding a coin that has passed through countless hands, each with its own story, and yet it still carries the promise of discovery. So next time you stumble upon a 1994 penny with no mint mark, take a closer look. You might just find that ordinary coins can hold extraordinary secrets. In a world full of fleeting moments, Sometimes the smallest object can remind us that history, value, and curiosity can fit in the palm of our hand. Welcome back. Imagine holding a coin in your hand that looks ordinary at first glance, just a small piece of copper-colored metal. But what if I told you that this coin, minted in 2006, could hold secrets that make it far more valuable than the pennies you find in your pocket change? Today, we're going to explore the story behind the 2006 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that has fascinated collectors and casual observers alike. From its history and unique features to the rare errors that make it highly sought after, this is a penny that has quietly earned a reputation as one of the most intriguing modern coins in recent decades. The 2006 D. Lincoln penny is part of the long-running series of 1-cent coins featuring Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The D on this penny indicates that it was minted in Denver, one of the two primary mints producing pennies in the United States, the other being Philadelphia. While pennies are one of the most common coins in circulation, certain years and mint marks create collectible opportunities, and 2006 is no exception. At first glance, the 2006 D penny may seem ordinary, but closer examination reveals details that make it special for collectors and numismatists. The history of the 2006 penny begins in a period of change for the United States Mint. By 2006, the Lincoln cent had been in production for nearly a century, and the design had seen only minor adjustments since 1959 when the reverse switched to the Lincoln Memorial, commemorating Lincoln's 150th birthday. That year, the Mint was also experimenting with production techniques, ensuring coins were uniform in weight and appearance while still managing the high volume needed for everyday circulation. The 2006 D penny was struck in large numbers, yet, ironically, this abundance is part of what makes some of these coins rare today. Certain coins produced that year contain subtle errors or anomalies that were not intended, giving them collectible value. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 2006 D penny is its physical composition. Like pennies minted since 1982, it is primarily made of zinc, coated with a thin layer of copper. This was a departure from the earlier composition of nearly pure copper, which gives the coin a lighter weight and a slightly different feel. The obverse, or front, of the coin features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design by Victor David Brenner that has remained largely unchanged for more than a century. The word Liberty is inscribed to the left, and the year 2006 sits to the right, with the D mint mark just below it. On the reverse, we see the Lincoln Memorial, complete with tiny details of the statue within, a design that has challenged coin graders to inspect every line carefully. While standard coins are identical in appearance, it's the anomalies and errors that make certain 2006 D pennies extraordinary. Collectors are particularly interested in what are called die errors or minting mistakes. Some 2006 D pennies exhibit doubled dies, where parts of the date or lettering appear to be slightly duplicated, creating a shadow effect. Other coins may have die cracks, small raised lines resulting from worn or damaged dies. Even the tiniest variation can make a coin significantly more valuable to the right collector. There are also rare instances where the mint mark itself may appear doubled or misplaced, turning an otherwise ordinary penny into a sought-after collectible. These subtle differences require a trained eye or magnification to detect, which is why coin enthusiasts spend hours examining pennies from this year under strong light and magnifying glasses. Despite being a modern coin, the 2006 D penny has already appeared in collector circles at surprising prices. For example, uncirculated examples with strong luster and perfect details can sell for several dollars, far above face value. Rare error coins, particularly those with noticeable doubled dies or misplaced mint marks, have been auctioned for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on their condition. In one documented case, a 2006 D penny with a prominent die crack and sharp details sold online for more than $200, proving that even coins barely 2 decades old can command significant interest. The key is that collectors are drawn to uniqueness and rarity, and any deviation from the standard striking process can turn an ordinary coin into a collectible treasure. Knowing how to identify a genuine 2006 D penny versus a counterfeit or reproduction is essential for collectors. Authentic coins will have the proper weight, a zinc core with a thin copper coating, and precise detailing on both the obverse and reverse. The mint mark should be clear and correctly positioned just below the date. Signs of tampering, such as artificial polishing, added mint marks, or altered features, can drastically reduce a coin's value. For error coins, it is important to consult reputable references or certified grading services, as they can verify the authenticity of the anomaly. Experienced collectors often rely on professional grading companies to certify coins, giving buyers confidence that the coin is real and its value accurately assessed. The 2006 Lincoln penny also comes with some surprising fun facts that many people don't know. For one, while most pennies are mass-produced and designed to be indistinguishable from each other, minor variations in metal composition and striking pressure can create subtle differences that are impossible to replicate exactly. Some collectors enjoy the thrill of searching through rolls of pennies just to find one that stands out. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln memorial on the reverse actually shows the statue of Lincoln in miniature, something that is nearly invisible without magnification. These small details connect the coin to its rich history and provide a tactile link to one of America's most revered presidents. Collectors love the 2006 penny for several reasons. Its relative modernity makes it accessible. Anyone can search through circulation and rolls to try their luck. At the same time, the potential for rare errors and anomalies offers a sense of excitement usually reserved for much older coins. Owning a 2006 penny, especially one in pristine condition or with an unusual minting error, allows collectors to hold a piece of recent history that can appreciate in value over time. For many, it's not just about the potential financial gain, but about connecting with the story behind the coin, the minting process, and the legacy of Abraham Lincoln. The allure of this coin is amplified by the simplicity and elegance of its design. A small piece of metal becomes a canvas for history, art, and meticulous craftsmanship. Every detail, from the curve of Lincoln's jaw to the lines of the memorial columns, tells a story. And while it may seem like just another penny in your pocket, for collectors, this coin represents the thrill of discovery and the possibility of uncovering something extraordinary in an ordinary place. So the next time you come across a 2006 Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it as mere change. Examine it closely, check the mint mark, look for any anomalies, and appreciate the history it carries. Even the smallest details can reveal surprises, and for those who seek them out, the 2006 penny offers a rewarding blend of history, artistry, and the potential for real value. Who knows, the next coin you hold in your hand could be more than it seems. A hidden gem waiting to be discovered. In the end, the 2006 Lincoln penny reminds us that every coin has a story. Some stories are obvious, printed right on the surface, while others are hidden in tiny variations, errors, or the mere fact that the coin survived decades in circulation. It's a reminder that history can be found in the most everyday objects, that curiosity can transform a simple penny into a treasure, and that careful observation often rewards those who look closely. If you enjoy uncovering secrets and connecting with pieces of history, the 2006 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how even modern coins can hold timeless fascination. So keep your eyes open the next time you reach for change. That ordinary penny in your hand may be a small window into the past, a collector's prize, or simply a fascinating piece of American history. The 2006 Lincoln penny is more than just a coin. It is a reminder that the most intriguing discoveries are sometimes hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice.